Is the option for Kenya to pull out of the Rome Statute and by virtue of that the ICC still something that's on the cards, and should it come to it, would you rally parliamentarians to put in place the necessary legal instruments for that to happen?
Ultimately, I have no doubt in my mind, ultimately Kenya will pull out of the Rome Statute. The only begging question is when. So now we are seeing President Museveni speaking on behalf of the African Union. We are going to make consultation. We abide by the African Union resolutions. But I can tell you for free that ultimately, the way the US government withdrew from the ICC in 2002, Kenya one day will withdraw from the Rome Statute.
And is that dependent on the outcome of the case against the president and his deputy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the only remaining hurdle for us to decide as Parliament, as a Jubilee coalition, on our membership, our stay as a member state in the Rome Statute. So the moment we are done with that, then we will. But I can tell you now, Parliament twice has adopted a motion for Kenya to pull out of the ICC. It is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to initiate the process that is 1 year through the UN Security Council. But I am sure now we are at the place where Dick Cheney, George Bush Jr. and Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld were at a table where they decided that the US government should withdraw from the Rome Statute. Similar reasons that the US gave are here today in Kenya.
Just to be sure that I'm understanding you correctly, are you then saying that should the court determine that the case against President Kenyatta should go to trial, then that will be your cue to rally your troops?
I don't see the case against the president going to trial. Cases go to trial based on evidence and facts presented. As of today, what is happening within the OTP, the Office of the Prosecutor, is that I have no evidence against the president. So that's why he didn't go for a trial. He went for a status conference to The Hague the day before yesterday.
We'll return with more on that on Opinion Court. Now, Deputy President William Ruto and radio journalist Joshua Sang have lost an appeal against ICC judge's decision to compel witnesses to testify in their case. The presiding judge on the appeals board said the Rome Statute gives the trial chambers power to compel witnesses to appear before it. The judge said that as a state party, Kenya was under obligation to facilitate the witnesses' appearance at The Hague. Here at Citizen TV News, the Facebook pages by the same names, and of course use the SMS line 22422. We love to hear from you. Well, as you saw in the news stories that we aired earlier, President Uhuru Kenyatta came back into the country to an overwhelming welcome, if you like, from his supporters. Listen to what the Deputy President had to say as he introduced the President to the crowd, and then we'll talk.
Nimwambie Bwana President, wale walikupangia safari ya kwenda huko ya njama, lakini wananchi wa Kenya wamekukaribisha nyumbani. Walisema ya kwamba they told us that this is a personal matter. Now they can see that it is a personal matter to millions of Kenyans.
Prof, I'll start with you. Has the ICC turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Jubilee coalition leaders?
Yes and no. In a sense, it has given, yes, because it has given Uhuru a chance to consolidate his power. The way he organized himself to go there, he has played victim. Because the way he left, he looked like a guy who has stripped himself of power to meet certain interests. He walked out in a jeans and a t-shirt and looked like a beaten schoolboy. And that was enough to pull a lot of people on his side. So it has become a blessing with that, in that regard. But also, on the other hand, it may not be a blessing because we don't know what the judges are going to say. So until the judges make their ruling, we can't say it will be. If the judges rule that he still has to produce evidence and something must be done, then he will still wait there. But if the judges say he has no case to answer, then again it enhances his popularity. But having said that, I also want to add this on. This guy, I have been thinking that he didn't have very good advisors, but on this one, I thought he pulled
the likes of Honorable
yes,
Duale.
yes, but he pulled a certain very significant political masterstroke on his opponents, especially his critics, especially in Kenya, by just looking, organizing a palace coup, where he is the leader of the coup. He strips himself power, and then walks out beaten, then comes back, reclaims his power in another incident without punishing those who had taken his power, and then he takes power in Europe and then walks back as president. So this one was a mark of political genius, and I think it has also helped to enhance his image as a guy probably who is not so much hungry about power, and he can surrender power to anybody else. So this one calls for his critics and opponents to reorganize to see how to hit him. If they don't, this one is doing them in, and they have to really think about it very seriously. So it's both yes and no. It might have enhanced his stature, and it's a blessing in disguise, but it's also no. But the last thing that I want to say, Anne, is the fact that what Deputy President William Ruto is saying, that it is a personal problem for 40 million Kenyans, is wrong. That is not true. It's not a personal problem for 40 million Kenyans. You know, 40 million Kenyans is a whole population. I don't think so. Even the president from the beginning had said that this is a personal problem. That's why he was leaving the sovereignty of Kenya behind and going to The Hague as a private citizen. So don't say this is a personal problem for 40 million Kenyans. I don't think the deputy president is right in that regard.
Yeah, he said millions of Kenyans, just to quote him accurately. I saw you nodding and smiling quite a bit, Honorable Duale, as which is rare when Prof is talking.
Yeah.
and you were nodding in response to the fact that perhaps you have set fire, if you like, on the court camp with the events of this week. Do you think what we've witnessed from the president's speech on Monday up until his arrival today has significantly shaped politics?
I don't think so. One, I think the president never did a palace coup. The president did what he did within the provisions of Article 147 of the Constitution of Kenya. And this is some of the beautiful articles in this Constitution. I mean, in fact, I'll give credit to Kenyans in 2010 and the cut of the Constitution to provide that kind of that. Secondly, the application of that article again gives President Uhuru Kenyatta a mileage over many other leaders. He's the third leader globally to have used that article. It's Nelson Mandela who did it, President Nixon who did it when he was ill, and Uhuru Kenyatta is the third president globally who has used certain provisions of a constitution of a country. But President Kenyatta, through his humbleness and humility, showed the people of this country that power is about trust, that power is about relationship, that his relationship and his trust to the people he works with, and more specifically the deputy president, is above board. But what he did on Monday, now coming to the politics, President Uhuru Kenyatta has sent several signals in using Article 147. He sent a signal to the ICC that I was charged when I was a private citizen, not a head of state. So I will come to the ICC court as a private citizen, and I will not drag the 40 million Kenyans, I will not drag the Constitution of Kenya, I will not drag the sovereignty of our country to that court. That was meant for ICC. He sent a signal to the court coalition because their rallying call for many years, even before the election, was that Uhuru Kenyatta's case is a personal matter. So Uhuru said, fine. Now I'm a head of state. It is, I can confirm to you, the court coalition and the people who felt that way, that I will prove to you that I will go to the ICC in a personal capacity. Of course.
Which is betrayed by the Deputy President's statement.
No, I'm coming to it if you allow me.
Yes.
The Deputy President's statement in the context in which he said was in what he saw today, that there were millions of Kenyans who walked with the President from the airport to his office. There are millions, I'm sure, in all parts of the country that who felt that the matter facing President Uhuru Kenyatta might be a personal matter to him, but to many millions of Kenyans is a matter that concerns them, their president. So the Deputy President's statement must be looked at from the happenings of today, from the airport, or even from the time he left. But I can tell you, President Uhuru Kenyatta has come out very, very clearly that he's a very humble person. He has a lot of humility that people never thought. And I can tell you, since independence, I don't think all our the other 3 successive presidents, including his own father, could have done, even if the provision of Article 147 was there.
Would have done it. Prof, you talked earlier about, the sort of hero's welcome that the president received and the card that it seems he played, playing victim. What do you think of that narrative? Is he in fact a victim in these ICC proceedings? Is he in fact a hero, or did he just do what any law-abiding Kenyan would do?
You see, when I talk about playing victim, he's saying that probably people are unfair to him. And even if you are unfair to me, let me come. And you see, in that case, even in the African context, when somebody is playing victim, people tend to sympathize with him or her more than when they are, chest thumping. So that is what he has done, and it's a political strategy. It doesn't mean that he ceased to be president, but the show he put on is such that it presents him as a victim, and when he arrives at the ICC, he also looks private, and yet there is that contradictory part. He's the president. So that is really what I'm talking about when I mentioned that he is playing victim, and he attracts a lot of sympathy on his side.
All right. I want us to listen to another clip, this time by President Uhuru Kenyatta. He touches on the fact that the country remained stable while in the hands of his deputy, William Ruto. Listen.
Mimi sikuwa na hofu kwa sababu unajua tunafanya kazi na ndugu yangu na yeye atashikilia. Kwa nini uogope mwenzako? Kwa nini umuogope mwenzako? We have to learn to trust one another. We have to learn to believe in one another. We have to learn that kama iko na ndugu yangu iko na mimi. Kwa sababu faida ni maendeleo gani tutapata. Sio nani amekalia.
In one stroke, did the president fix the problems that have been alluded to within the Jubilee coalition?
No, he didn't. In fact, if you look at, you talk to people in the streets, there was a lot of anxiety, and you will see it. I think you saw clips of some people saying, we thought since he was handing over power to Ruto, he was not going to come back. President Uhuru has his own supporters. And even if he says, yes, I fixed this problem now, the suspicions are over, they are not over, because each person, including the faction in the coalition of Honorable Duale, they still think that one day they can also take power through their candidate. And now, this time they are supporting the president, but it's not fixed. The suspicions will continue. And the president is aware about that suspicion. If you followed what he said, he ended up even talking about, we don't want Ukikuyu, we don't want Ujalwo, we don't want Ukalenjin. He knows very well that some people look at the presidency in ethnic terms. If you see what happened in Deputy President Ruto's village, some people even celebrated. They found it that their own child had even acted as president. So that shows that we still haven't solved the problem that the presidency is highly ethnicized, and the people vote because they think that a member of their ethnic community must take power. So for the moment, as an individual, this is the message he's communicating. In my opinion, President Uhuru should continue talking about this message. It is something that I've always advocated for, that if he continues talking like this, he has a duty to change and our people's perceptions will change. And he must follow that by, when he's saying, you can trust other people from other communities and we must trust each other. We must work as a nation. This informs the discourse on the national cohesion. So my position is that it's not just enough for the president to address this matter in a public rally. We want to see this unity in government. We want to see this Ujaluo and Ukikuyu not in government. Even the composition of his government should not show the idea of Ujaluo or Ukikuyu, or discrimination against Ujaluo and the promotion of Ukikuyu, or the collusion between Ukalenjin and Ukikuyu, and then the exclusion of Somali.
You're saying he should walk the talk.
He should walk the talk,
okay.
Because in this government, the way it is composed, that is not the case. And therefore, we hope that if the ICC experience has tickled his conscience enough, to the point that he can start reorganizing his government to kill Ukikuyu, to kill Ujaluo, and to kill Ukalenjin, then that is the right thing to do.
And I imagine by that you mean generally ethnicity.
Of course, I'm using the ones he used, but I'm talking I would use Turkana also. But,
right.
But this is the point.
Fair enough.
Yes.
What's your response to that, Duan?
I don't want to talk on the very, very artificial and very raw on like what the professor is saying. One, I think the president has not come back to his conscience. The president is very, very conscious, and I'm sure the decision he made on Monday puts him above all other leaders in our country or even in the region. But coming to the context in which he said that we must have trust. And as one person who has worked very closely with President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto, trust is key not only in government, it's key even in the family value. A trust between a husband and a wife. So, and it's well documented in the scriptures, in the Quran, in the Bible. But to those doubting Thomases within the Jubilee coalition, and that's my own interpretation as Honorable Duale, doubting Thomases, those who wanted to use the card that come, because for us, from where I sit, our candidate for 2017, God willing, is President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have no other candidate from the Jubilee coalition. And the Deputy President will be our candidate again, if God so be it, in 2022. But those doubting Thomases, the doomsayers, those who wanted to use tribal cards and sentiments, that come 2017 or come 2022, a certain region within our coalition will not support the candidature of the Deputy President. That has been put to rest.
How has that...
if I finish,
go ahead.
If the President can show that degree of trust to his deputy, and that's my own interpretation, that was very, very key. But let's come to the gist of the matter that we are discussing. You know, the Constitution is very, very, very clear. Unless you're telling me that the Luos and I hate using ethnic overtones, but the Luos and the Kikuyus and the Luos and the Luyas and the Kambas were mainly in our government from the opposition stronghold. If those individuals
not mainly, it's about regional balance, a good representation of all communities.
You know, we need to face the fact. The issue is that the opposition is claiming that their regions have been left out in this government. If the individuals, because they are individuals who went through parliamentary vetting for them to be in this government, if the opposition are saying those individuals from our regions do not represent our people, it's a different matter. Because for the president to do an appointment, he must do within the confines of the constitutional provisions. And some of these appointments go to Parliament for vetting and for approval. And in Parliament, it's not a Jubilee wholesome Parliament. It's a Parliament where we have a very critical mass of the opposition, 133 members.
Let me interject.
So I think
I want to ask
so.
to ask
So
Perhaps let's allow Prof to respond to what
I want to tell you this. It's true that all appointments, especially major ones, are constitutionally supposed to go through parliament. That one, Mheshimiwa, is not a problem. But the president, as the head of state and government, is supposed to look. Sometimes even parliament makes mistakes because there are other interests that take place. If, for example, he takes a quick look at the way parliament has carried out its business in terms of appointment vis-a-vis the constitution, he can use his own conscience and say, why would you, for example, have this kind of appointments where you have more people from the Mijikenda than you have from the Turkana? Is there an explanation? Even if they have gone through the vetting, he has a national duty to address these inequalities, regional inequalities in government, by even calling parliament and saying, like you say, go and point out this anomaly. It has not been dealt with. You don't need to politicize. You don't need to politicize that. So my advice is,
you have said this on a number of times on this talk show. I want to ask you a very simple, hypothetical, moral question.
Yes.
Tonight.
Yes.
Apart from the constitution.
Yes.
That gives the parameters in which appointments must be represented ethnically, regionally, and even in all shades and gender.
Yes.
Do you have a specific formula outside the constitution?
The formula.
The president must use the formula prescribed for in the constitution.
No, the constitution has no formula.
And if I finish, parliament has, it is the only body that does the oversight on any action and omission the president makes.
You see, if you look at this,
so if you are saying parliament,
let him respond. Let him respond.
If you look at the various sections of the constitution talks generally about regional balance, ethnic balance, no discrimination. If you look at the national values in Article 10 of the Constitution,
the Constitution is very specific.
And it doesn't.
It's not general. It's very specific.
When it comes to representation, it's clear. But when you talk about appointment in government,
let us not talk about the Constitution. Let's give it the provisions.
No,
the Constitution is very, very
I appreciate where you're both coming from, and I believe so do our audience, but we must press forward because we want to recenter on the question of the ICC.
You see, the parliament can do the legislation
fair enough,
to fix the formula.
Fair enough, but we must get back on track because we're discussing the ICC, so I must impress that on you. I want us to listen to another clip, this time again from the president, and he is talking about the West claiming to have the answers to Kenya's problems. Here's what he said.
Kiri hawa ndio wako na dawa ati watakuja kutuambia fanyeni hivi fanyeni vile. Sisi tunawaambia hapana. Sisi tuko na suluhu ya shida zetu. Ile tunatafuta ni washirika ambao tutakuja kusaidiana pamoja nao, lakini agenda na plan ni yetu sisi wa Kenya hapa. Sisi hatutaki kuambiwa la kufanya. Tunataka watu wa kutusaidia kufanya yale ambaye sisi tumejiamlia kama wa Kenya.
You know, Prof, the sovereignty narrative is one that was played from the very beginning, from the onset when the ICC question came up. Do you think Kenyans are buying en masse into that argument that this is really about Kenya's, self-determination and fixing our own problems? And if it is about that, what has been demonstrated by our leadership to say that, yes, in fact, we can fix our own problems?
Yes, Anne, this is what surprises me, and I hope the majority leader can respond to these specific things, and I would like him to listen. When you look at what has happened, we killed each other in 2007, and it took the work of the international community to come here and sort out the matter. Nobody was listening to the other until Kofi Annan arrived. When they fixed and came up with a formula on what we should do, and the formula worked, we start now talking that, we can fix our own problems. The problem that you are seeing at the ICC now, where Kenyans are indicted at the ICC, you know that there is a process which led us to the ICC. ICC did not even invite itself here. Now, after some Kenyans are taken there, the hope, according to the Rome Statute, is that we must have local processes which can deal with the cases of lesser impact than the ones that we have. And Up to this point we are talking about, we say we can fix our own problems. There are people who are killed in a church in Eldoret. There are people who are murdered elsewhere, raped in Kibera. Everywhere. We have not even attempted to set up local institutions that can deal with the case of victims. So I don't, with due respect to the president, I don't agree with him that this is a matter of the West against us. What are we doing, for example, to solve the problems that we have gone through? It's not just about settlement. It's also about the people. There are people who walk around here and they are murderers. There are people who walk around here, they are rapists. We have never dealt with that. So really we must also demonstrate to the world that we can sort out our problems. And this tallies with what you saw the president of Uganda also mentioning Anne. In the same way, he said, you know, this is like neocolonialism. He's a despot, you know that. And now he's saying we can solve our own problems here. Why doesn't he advise our institutions in Africa to start working? And the president, his colleagues start working and show that we can solve our own problems.
What concrete steps has the Jubilee government taken to show that it in fact is solving Kenya's problems?
Let's look at the context. I think they said, is there a foreign influence in this matter? I mean, this is the question, and I'm sorry to say that if the statement of President Uhuru Museveni describes him as a despotic, then I can tell you there are millions and millions in the African continent who agree with Uhuru Museveni. But let me come to it, and I've been very consistent. And if you allow me, ICC, the people of this country and the continent must understand ICC in its proper context. 70% of the ICC court is financed by three countries, three Western countries, Britain, France, and Germany. Go back to what made key countries with huge populations, 20% of the world population, represented by 122 member states, a member. You look at the civil society. Kenya signed the Rome Statute in 1998. The time of Amos Wako and Aaron Ringera at the Attorney General's office. Today, what the Americans said in 2002, after Clinton made sure US joined, one of the two reasons the Americans gave, one was, and it was said in a statement by Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, the Defense Secretary, that we are leaving the ICC because there are no checks and balance to contain the influence of the prosecutor.
I appreciate the background you're giving, sir, but I must cut to the chase because we're out of time. The question to you, hold on, Prof, the question to you is this: what has the Jubilee government done to show that it in fact is solving Kenya's problems? If you could just respond to that, sir.
We have been given 4 options by the judges. We're expecting 4 or 5 options. The number of victims, everybody, including myself, we want justice for the victims. The lawyer for the victims was here 3 weeks ago. Let me finish.
Sir, please answer the question.
He came with extra 1,400 victims who are not physically, cannot be verified. But my question is this. The question you are putting to me, under an independent judiciary led by none other than Dr. William Mutunga, is supposed to set a division within the High Court. The matter before us today was that of the president as an accused person. If you ask me, it's not the work of Parliament, it's not the work of the executive, it's the work of the judiciary under a reformed independent judiciary to form a division within.
So why has
what I'm coming to is that when you're a member of the Rome Statute, a state party like Kenya, you are represented by your Attorney General and your Foreign Minister.
Right.
But the Rome Statute representation for Kenya is done by civil society. The witnesses have been caught.
Sir, I must stop you there because I do not believe you're answering my question. I'll take that as a decline. We must wind up. We must wind up, Professor. We are completely out of time.
Yes, I just want one statement.
I appreciate that. Perhaps we'll be able to come back very briefly for that final view, but we must go to break right now. Perhaps we'll be back after this.